Why did you choose this specific problem when compared to all the others?
One, the problem felt really big. Corporate gifting is a multi-$100 billion a year category. Direct mail is a over $50 billion a year category. Promotional products and swags over $30 billion. So really huge addressable market.
What do you see the vision for the next maybe 3 or 5 years with the product?
As much as I talked about AI, we're still just getting started on that whole thesis of what's the right gift to send to the right person at the right time with the right message and the right delivery channel. And so we're continuing to focus on all of those things.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our podcast, Everything Product. As product managers, we all know that in order for us to solve a problem, we need to start with the customer. But how many of us actually do that? Today, we are going to present you a podcast episode with Kris Rudeegraap. He is the co-CEO and co-founder of Sendoso. He identified a problem that he was having when he was working at a company. He solved it really well for himself, and then he started his own company with his entrepreneurial mindset to solve the exact same problem for hundreds of other companies. Now he grew that company into a $152 million venture backed company. So, for all of our product managers, right, stop thinking about building a product like Facebook or Google's of the world. Identify the problem that you have at hand and then learn to scale it. So, with this, let's get started. Kris, thank you so much for taking time and joining the Everything Product team today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Before we deep dive into all the questions that we have planned for you, I want to start with a very simple one, right? Like, can you start with a short intro about yourself and how it everything started with Sendoso?
Yeah. So I started Sendoso about 8 years ago. Prior to that, I spent about a decade in software sales myself, mostly in individual contributor account executive roles. And so I was in the field trying to book meetings, trying to stand out, differentiate, grab the attention of prospects. And I found that just sending out gazillion emails wasn't working. It was becoming more spammy. So I started to test manually, writing handwritten notes and sending it out, or being on a call and hearing a dog bark and going to Amazon, finding a dog toy to send it out, or going to our swag closet after hours to pack up boxes of swag and send it out to prospects. And it all worked really, really well. It was just incredibly tiring, manual, cumbersome. And so that's where the idea for Sendoso came out, which was a platform to make it easy to send out corporate gifts, swag, direct mail, gift cards to send to anyone in the world. And we've raised about 150 million in funding. We've seen over 250 million spent on our platform with millions of gifts sent and some really interesting data behind it.
Awesome. That's very interesting, right? So you have seen the problem when you're working at a company, like have done certain things to improve that, and then you took that idea and started your own company to solve that problem. That's awesome. Before we go into more details there, right? So I want to understand more about this industry too. So
Mhm.
when we think about especially like B2B sales, B2B sales, trying to reach out the customers, opportunities, etc. It's a huge funnel. There might be a lot of work that goes into it. Why did you choose this specific problem when compared to all the others?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that one, the problem felt really big. Corporate gifting is a multi-$100 billion a year category. Direct mail is a over $50 billion a year category. Promotional products and swags over $30 billion. So really huge addressable market. There's some really interesting defensible technology as it relates to the logistics and physical effort. Like it's hard to spin up a 200,000 square foot warehouse like in your garage. You can't. So there's some defensibility there in terms of at scale, it becomes a really differentiated offering. And I thought it was something that I uniquely knew better than anyone because I had spent, years in sales and I had manually felt the pain and wanted to figure out if there was a solution. So problem I knew about, big market and defensible moats.
Nice.
Yeah, great. And the first time when I was actually looking through the company and I was like, this is a space which I have not seen before. I didn't even think there existed a market for it, right? So I think that's a perfect example of you actually facing the problem and going out and building a company around it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's not as obvious of a problem until you see how big it is. Or you think about, how many times you get mailed things versus, next time you get something to mail, you're gonna be like, oh, I remember Sendoso. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
That's true. Actually, I would love to like learn more about your journey, Chris. So I know you knew the problem. Even us, right, as product managers, we know we solve a lot of problems within the company, but not many times we go through that idea of building our own companies to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you talk us through your journey of what ticked you off to say, hey, I need to leave my job to start this company? And then would also love to understand your early journey. Like, how did you start? What are the different problems that you faced? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So for me, it was unique because I didn't have a product management background or an engineering background. And so my background was I was the subject matter expert in, let's call it B2B gifting for salespeople. And so I said, hey, I think I know what I need to build. Let me draw it up on paper, the different screens, the different workflows. I then translated that into some mock-ups and then hired a designer off of Upwork, or at the time Elance, to design the initial like V1 mockups, and then was able to then get that into some hiring an engineer to then translate that. So I think that was for me, that was a bit of imposter syndrome, thinking like, oh, I'm a salesperson, I can't build a company. But I really felt like I knew what I wanted to use as the user, and I used that as my advantage when building out kind of the first version. And I started small. The very first version was just sending gift cards, no warehouse, and wanted to see if people would pay money to send something besides an email. And started to get some traction there. That was kind of an easy V1, quick to market. Then went out and said, now's the time I want to build out the warehousing side of things. And that was a lot more trickier. But I went out and talked to customers like with designs in hand, no product, no engineers, just designs to say, hey, what do you think of this? Would you buy this? And that gave me enough conviction to quit my job because people were like, yes, I'll buy that.
A quick question, just to dig deep, right? So obviously you are validating it through, all of these prototypes and the version 1 and all, but a lot of people find it really, really difficult to find their first 10, 20 or 100 customers. So could you maybe throw some light there, and then go on to the journey?
Yeah, I think that was easy for me, but that was because I
Okay.
spent the last 10 years in sales. And so, for me, it was okay, I know who the buyer could be at the time. I thought I knew because at first I said, hey, sales managers, VPs of sales should buy it. So I went out there and built lists and added people to sequences and sent stuff to people and cold called and just started meeting with people both through my network and cold calling. Quickly realized that actually sales leaders were not my buyer and that marketing leaders were, but sales were influencers. And so I quickly pivoted and shifted to talking to marketing. And, I think it's easier than ever to go out and find, a database or a list of people's email addresses or mailing addresses. Easier than ever to spin up like an outbound sequence. I think it was a lot harder, maybe 5, 10 years ago, finding that data or getting it at a price that you could afford when you're just like a couple people.
And how many did you send out? How many invites, or at least the first initial
Yeah, I
list?
mean, in the beginning, it was like, hey, I wanted to kind of test the numbers, and it was like a couple hundred, and my goal was just to try to get, 10, 20 customers. I think out of the first couple hundred, I got like 50 customers, so I had a really high hit rate.
50%. That's great.
Yeah, and that was really strong. And I think it was also due to a really strong product market fit, right time, right place. I also offered an incredible deal too. Like pricing was super low. I think after those first 50 customers, we more than 10x pricing, and the next 50 didn't even care or didn't even blink. So I had some too low of pricing, I think. But I think in the early days, it was more or less seeing if people would use the product. I don't think I really learned product market fit until I priced it at a point that was feasible to scale. Comparison, I think it was, $100 a month or something, and then I changed it to $2,000 a month. It didn't have any impact to my pipeline, and so that was a big shift. I also shifted away from founder-led sales to hiring salespeople because I think early on, if you're a passionate founder, you can sell, Eskimo's ice. You just have the passion. And so I quickly wanted to see if I had go-to-market fit. So, I hired 2 salespeople and said, hey, you're strangers, you're not founders, go sell this. And then they built lists and figured out how to sell it. And I think my first sales rep sold like a couple $1 million in revenue his first year.
Awesome. So initially you said gift cards, then you basically showed it to people. You got your first maybe 50 customers, right? Like, did you expand into a warehouse model before hiring salespeople, or was it after?
It was before. So the gift
Okay.
cards was really just me as a kind of an entrepreneur founder, having a couple engineers who built that I found through Upwork. And then one other co-founder came in at that time who was also a salesperson background. And so we sold a bunch of gift cards, used some of the revenue from that to then parlay into Sendoso and immediately build out warehousing before we wanted to sell to more customers.
Got it. This is very interesting, Chris. I want to understand a little bit more there, right? I know you said started with gift cards and then moved into selling different products and stuff.
Yep.
How did you go about deciding like what you need to sell? I mean, a couple of conversations could have given you ideas, but how did you go about figuring out that hey, this is exactly my product market fit? And if you could talk us through the pricing that you went through as well. I think you have monthly subscriptions, etc. Like if you can walk us through that as well, that'll be awesome.
Yeah, so I think in determining what next to build and sell was a combination of one, myself. I knew that I had this roadmap, this vision that I needed to kind of chip away at, month over month. The two was validating it with customers and seeing what customers thought as well. But I think that it was more just building out my vision. Pricing was tricky. I think pricing is a tricky conversation across the board because you can get it wrong and it can really impact your potential growth. For me, I realized that in order to build a big business, I did some spreadsheet math to figure out how am I going to get to a million to 10 million to 100 million in revenue, and what kind of ACV did I want to look at, like what was the average contract value I wanted to sell. And I knew that it needed to be 30,000 ish in order to at least get going, eventually having multi-$100,000 SaaS deals and hopefully one day millions, but needed to have lots of 25, 30, 50, 80, 100, multi-$100,000 contracts. And so I
Mhm.
did the backwards math on how to get there.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Got it.
And you said it's a subscription model, right? Is it more like somebody subscribes to it and they can send as many of these, or is there a limit or a tier to that subscription model?
Yeah, there's a couple different tiers based on the features you want access to, the international versus domestic access and the number of users you want to have on the platform. And then from there on, you just load up account balance and spend against that for the gifts, the postage, gift cards, etc.
Okay. And there's a subscription which you keep paying every month, right?
Correct.
Awesome.
How about the customers in itself? Because the biggest part of the funnel is identifying the right customers, sending the right gifts to the customers, right? Would Sendoso help in like finding the right customers to the companies as well? Or would the list come from the companies and then you guys help in handling everything there?
Yeah, so right now our focus is on letting our customers decide who they want to send to. However, we are working on some features that will allow us to suggest who else they should send to that they haven't sent to yet in their marketing or sales systems. We do have a really awesome AI suggestion engine that we built that gives you what you should send. So if I plug in your email address or a title or location or somebody who likes golf, it's going to pinpoint in exactly what you should send and give you some options. It'll also let the recipient exchange it out or donate that gift or that amount too. But we do have a really strong suggestion engine. And our kind of vision is what's the right gift to send to the right person at the right time with the right
Mhm.
message and the right delivery channel. The right gift is something we've already optimized through a suggestion engine. The right message is something we've optimized through AI and crafting the right either handwritten note or gift message. And so that's the others we're also working on. We'll be releasing some other features relative to that too.
That is also like a critical part of the business, right? Because it's not always easy to understand what might be the right gift for the person, right? So, and if you are able to do that or pick the right gift, that could be like a delighter for them, right?
For sure. And I look about it as you want to personalize as much as possible in anything you do in sales and marketing or customer success. And we really have this personalization framework that, you can either personalize around the person. So, hey, Kris likes golf. Kris has a kid. Kris has a dog. Kris lives in San Francisco. Kris went through this college. You can personalize around like the signal. So, hey, Kris just switched companies. I'm going to send him champagne because I'm going to celebrate his new job. Or you can personalize the action, which is, hey, I want Kris to come to this exec golf event. I'm going to send him some branded golf balls and tell him to join me at this golf event. And so I think it's not always the individual that you need to personalize, like my hobbies or interests, but it could be the signal or the action.
Got it. No, that's lovely because if you can actually understand the customer and personalize the gift, like the person would definitely remember you, like, hey,
Exactly.
he actually thought about me and then did that. I would love to go more deeper. Like, how do you get the data? Like, would you be getting that info from the company as well? Like, or you guys look into analyzing the person or understanding the person and stuff?
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes into the data. There's data that we have access to. There's third-party data sets that we're bringing in, both matching consumers with business profiles. There's data feedback loops where a recipient is presented with a couple different options for gifts and they pick. And so that gives us a feedback loop of what they like versus what they didn't like. We also have like salespeople on the phone with prospects or on the phone with customers, and then they get off the call and we'll send a gift based on that conversation. So there's a lot of different areas in terms of how we find that data and then how that data gets better as we anonymize it or build kind of personas around different people or titles or industries and what people like too.
Nice. Actually, when I think about it, right, in the last 10 minutes of conversation, like you guys are very data centric. You guys are trying to utilize AI to like scale and hyper personalize the customer experience and also making sure to get that feedback loop so that you'll continue to improve on the products.
Precisely. And then one step further too, which is interesting, is a lot for our customers, we're integrated into their CRM, their marketing automation systems, etc. So we actually have great data on when something is sent and delivered. Are they taking action? Is there a sales deal close? Is there a lead that form filled out? So we get a feedback loop on the conversion data too, which helps us understand what are the best gifts or direct mailers that are driving conversion.
Got it.
Okay.
Lovely.
Are there any success stories that you can share? Or
Let's see. I mean, Verkada, which is a fast-growing security company, they sent Yeti mugs, and for every dollar spent, they were able to attribute $4 in ROI.
okay,
Gong sent these pinatas and sourced over 6 million in pipeline, or 6 million in closed pipeline, and it influenced nearly 30 million in influenced deals. Gainsight sent out their Gainsight economy book, which
okay,
created over $5 million in outbound source pipeline, attributing over 30% of closed one to that send. Guru sent cookies and saw a 5x response rate. A ton more stories if you go to sendoso.com/customer-examples or /success-stories. Fun worthy way to check out. Maybe you can include that in the show notes.
yeah, yes, we
Awesome.
can do that. We can add it to the description.
I want to take a step back again, Chris. So I know Sendoso grew pretty fast. Like
Yep.
in the last few years, at least, like I'm going through, the scale is pretty huge. So what actually took? Like what helped you guys like scale so fast?
Yeah, it was a mixture of one, building a really strong sales culture in the early days. We were always selling every employee, even if you were in product, you were jumping on a call to help get a customer closed. So we really rallied the company around sales in the early years, which was helpful. We did a lot of partnerships to drive distribution. We partnered with a lot bigger companies, Salesforce and HubSpot and Marketo Adobe and Outreach and SalesOft, these big companies when we were just really small. We executed a really strong kind of B2B inbound and outbound strategy. So content marketing, digital advertising, outbound SDR sales. So really hammered our inbound and outbound sales motion. We built a strong community of people that loved using our product and were passionate advocates. And
Mhm.
that really helped scale as those people switched companies. We scaled up fast and we timed the product to market really good. I think, it was coming off of this feeling of email spamminess. There was also the surge of account-based marketing and that trend, which we stuck to. COVID was really helpful for us because people were stuck at home. They could no longer go to events. They could no longer engage with people when face to face. So sending stuff really helped. And then we used all that momentum to raise money along the journey to continue to invest in growth too.
Okay.
Got it.
And how big of a role did digital marketing play? Like, were you using digital marketing from the get go onwards, or did you start using it in the recent times? And did you see a spike there? Like,
We were
go.
always
Okay.
yeah
Okay.
yeah.
I have one more question, Chris. I know we
Sure.
were briefly chatting about this as well, like sales led growth to a product led growth.
Mm-hmm.
I know like sales, I'm sure like sales helped a lot during the early stages or even like mid stages. But now I think like Sendoso has grown to a product where it's more product led, where as people continue to use the product, like both sides of the funnel, like senders and the receivers are actually more happy with the product.
Yep.
Can you talk more about how you guys are thinking there?
Yeah. So I think in the very early days, we had to launch as a sales led product. People didn't know what we were. People didn't really understand the category either. So we had to educate the category. We also built a product that was a bit more clunky V1 in order to get it out the door and start selling it to see if we could get traction. Then over the last 8 years, we've been able to invest a lot more money and resources into a dual motion where we still have a sales led motion, especially in the enterprise. But our product led motion allows folks to sign up, try it out, or have a freemium experience. And also, if you're a recipient, converting into being a sender is a good viral loop for us. Similar to like if you're a DocuSign or SurveyMonkey user, you receive a survey or you sign a document, you flip over and you're like, well, I should be doing this. So we have some of those same dynamics, and that's been really helpful for us. We also have the benefit of economies of scale now from our enterprise go-to-market motion and our sales-led motion that we can pass that off and into our product-led motion. And so some of our cost efficiencies, some of our operational efficiencies now that we've invested make it easier for a single user or a small team to get going and using it from a product motion.
Nice. That's very interesting. Can I go a little bit more deeper into the AI? I mean,
Of course.
that's been like very top of mind topic for like so many people,
Yeah.
and looks like you guys have been like very forefront in utilizing AI, like both in understanding the customers and obviously like personalizing the products as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you guys go about like defining what use cases that you wanted to solve with UI, and what are the learnings that you had? Like, what tools do you guys use? What are the learnings that you guys had?
Yeah. So I'll start with a big learning and a big patting myself on the back. Thank you. Was we like day zero, 8 years ago, structured our data, kept all of our data. We're thoughtful that sometime in the future we want to be a data company. And, at the time we were calling it data science, machine learning. I think now people, bucket it under AI, but we had an early data science team that was looking at how do we take some of our structured data, map it to other relational data that we could find and enrich this data over the years and over the years. And I think some companies or some teams like build their product and then 8 years later are like, now I should add in data. But I think, if you're starting out, it's very important to really think about what was the ideal state for your data, 5-10 years later, because I think you need data to make AI work. And I think that's also why we as the leaders in the space have such a head start on maybe all our smaller competitors because we have so much more data. And I think that's foundational. So that's key, number one. Two, we really wanted to look at, well, what is the most helpful way that our customers could benefit from AI? And the two things that popped up that we really focused on was productivity and conversions.
Mhm.
And so first is productivity. How can you use our platform quicker? How can you send stuff faster? How can you not go spend 20 minutes researching Kris on, Twitter and LinkedIn? Instead, we can do that for you. So how do we shave time and make you more productive? And then on the other side, how do we give you data and AI to make every gift you send, every message that's written, every person you're sent to more likely to convert, whether that's to book a meeting or to show up for a demo or to in product, fill out a form or to add more users, whatever your incentive you're trying to align to. How do we surface that right data and message to increase the likelihood of conversion? And so that's been really the core thesis for AI for us. And then we use, The big, OpenAI, some of the other LLM models. There's some AI data tools we use, but nothing too different than most people.
Pretty good. Yeah, and I see this, right? Like I see a lot of people just tagging AI for the sake of tagging, but you have this purpose around what you want to drive, and you have the clarity about, okay, this is what we're going to drive through you AI and get more efficiency. As you have been building this product, right, and it's scaling pretty fastly. So what do you see the future for this is, and what do you see the vision for the next maybe 3 or 5 years for the product?
Yeah, so I think we are, as much as I talked about AI, we're still just getting started on that whole thesis of what's the right gift to send to the right person at the right time with the right message and the right delivery channel. And so we're continuing to focus on all of those things, and that will be key. You'll see some announcements on what's the right, who are the right people to send to, as you alluded to earlier. We're working on that. What's the right delivery channel, and how do you get to the right delivery channel by means of, are you in the office? Are you not in the office? Do you want to receive a gift on your cell phone text message versus your email? So all of that we're going to be optimizing for as well. So those are kind of the big focus areas for us, and then just continuing to listen to our customers as we scale as well.
Awesome.
Got it. I want to touch a little bit upon pricing as well, Chris, because
Sure.
especially for a gifting segment, right? There might be like companies who are price conscious, or there
Mm-hmm.
might be companies who are not price conscious, but probably want to make sure that customer gets converted. So,
Mm-hmm.
how do you guys go about one, probably identifying the right priced product that the customer wants to send,
Yeah.
and the other one is probably, I mean, given that this is um, supply chain could be expensive, how do you guys go about optimizing your costs on that lens as well?
Yeah. So I'll take the first part. I think there is a misconception that gifting is expensive. And what I mean by that is, hey, sending one email is, $0, let's call it. Sending a bottle of wine is, you know, $50, let's say. But another way to look at it, and that's a lot of our customers will look at it, is saying, well, if I can spend $50 and book a meeting today versus I can send many emails and it takes me 4 months to book a meeting, what's better? Well, I'd rather pay $50 to get a meeting today than wait 4 months and pay zero, and all the opportunity costs that go along with that, or the sales rep's time spending 4 months sending emails, and what's that cost of time. So I think that's one area. There's also a lot of our customers will do this analysis of every dollar spent on gifting versus how much it produces. And so, if you spend $1 on, $50 on a gift, and it generates, or I think it's easier to look at the $1 generates $4 in pipeline. Well, maybe ads $1 generates $2 in pipeline. And so then you're like, oh, it's actually cheaper when you look at it dollar for dollar. So those are at the high level. I think, yes, gifting sounds expensive, but if you get more pipeline faster, is that better than thinking about it as expensive? I'd probably say so. But we do our best to kind of try to focus on how do we optimize our supply chain to pass along the best costs. I kind of call it like the Costco model, where we can get it cheaper than maybe you could if you went out and bought the same gift, because we have economies of scale, because we have supply chain benefits, because we go out and negotiate with all the carriers for shipping and logistics. So we could give you a better ROI than if you just did this yourself. I mean, a lot of companies are out there trying to gift themselves, thinking, hey, I'll just shortcut and pack boxes myself. But then it's like, you're an expensive paid marketing person or salesperson. You should be doing more expensive things than packing boxes and tracking, clicking on links for tracking links. So that's how I look at the costs associated with it. And your other question about how do we optimize for what's the right thing to send. So companies can filter by price points of gifts and mailers. We can also work with people's like ACV, like if you're selling a small business solution for a couple $100s a month, there's things that you can send that are $5, $10, $15, versus if you're selling a multi-$100,000 product or solution or software, then you can spend more.
Makes sense. I mean, the biggest value that you're giving to your customers is basically the time value of money, rather
Mm-hmm.
than spending them like weeks and them spending like weeks and weeks to convert a lead.
Yeah,
You basically make it happen much more faster.
exactly.
Even if they're spending a little bit more enough, the overall benefit that they're gonna get is much higher than wasting money,
Yeah,
Yeah,
wasting
the
time.
the ROI basically talks for itself, right? Essentially, yeah.
exactly. The other common use case is You might have used an email to book a meeting. Someone replied, you got a meeting, they're in your sales pipeline. Well, that prospect's also looking at your other competitors too. So what are you doing to differentiate yourself across the buying experience? And if you have a
Mm.
similar product that maybe has a similar price, well, maybe you sent them a thank you gift after that demo, or maybe 2 weeks in, you sent them a DoorDash e-gift lunch card saying, "Enjoy lunch on me, and here's a white paper you should check out." Versus your competitor just said, "Hey, checking in. Are you gonna, sign a contract?" What is a better buying experience? And I think a lot of times, we think about the customer experience, we think about the product experience, but what is the buying experience, and how do you optimize that for increasing your likelihood of winning?
Yep, that makes sense. I want to. I have like some fun thoughts there, Chris. Like
Sure.
I know you guys send like different types of products, right? Were there any hypotheses that you guys had to say like, "Hey, this product is gonna like click big time," and which didn't click, or these are some of the products which might not work but clicked really well, like for your customers?
Yeah, I mean, some of the nuanced ones was like socks does really, really well. I'm like,
Oh
everyone
no.
has socks. Why do you need to send socks? But for whatever reason, sending socks does really well.
Mm.
The people love getting Yeti mugs. I think that's a really common one. One product that came and went that was funny was like fidget spinners. We had like a million fidget spinners in our warehouses for a while, and then those just disappeared. Everyone like stopped sending it. But that was kind of like more of like a fad item.
Yeah, I actually have a Yeti mug, and
Yeah, there you
the
go.
Best Buy sent this, for
Nice.
Thanksgiving last year. So,
Yeah. Yeah, we do a fair amount of employee gifting too. So that's another area. While our focus has been more on sales and marketing and customer driven initiatives, we do see a lot of companies be like, well, why don't I use this internally? I need to, engage my employees. I need to thank them
Mhm.
for anniversary gifts or send them welcome kits, all those different things.
That makes sense. Um, I also want to understand the distinguishing factor, right? So, like you said, employee gifting is probably like one of the segments. Let's say I want to give a gift. Like
Mhm.
I know you guys primarily focus on the B2B, B2B side and the companies, employee gifting, etc. If let's say I want to do a B2C, I mean,
Mhm.
typically my mind goes to Amazon.
Mhm.
Okay, let me go to Amazon. Let's say someone has a birthday party, baby showers, etc. They have a registry. We go like do something. Are you guys thinking in that lens too, like B2C market, probably scaling in that direction, or do you think it's
I think it could be long into the future, but I think there's, a deca-billion-dollar and beyond company we can continue to build just in the B2B
Mhm.
space or B2B2C. So we have financial services companies and banks sending stuff to their customers. We have sports teams sending that stuff to their season ticket holders. We have hotels and hospitality sending stuff to their top members. We have gaming companies sending stuff to their big spending whales. So while we don't necessarily need to be a consumer gifting company ourselves, we're
Mhm.
still used by a lot of B2C companies sending stuff out to consumers too.
Correct. Yeah, and I don't see the space much in the US where you can maybe send out these gifts to family members and all of that. But I've seen this in India a lot. A lot of my friends use some services to send some gifts to parents and family out there in India, and it's a big business now there back in India.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a big business. It's just a lot different in terms of how our customer acquisition costs look, what's our
Yes. Yep.
LTV, what is a product experience. We can go land a big company like Adobe or Morgan Stanley or, big banks or big tech companies, and then we can get thousands or tens of thousands of users and all the reporting, all the analytics, all for a lot of, if you were going to use it, you might, you don't care about integrating it into other tools, or you don't care about reporting necessarily.
Mhm.
You just want an easy tool to, send your mom a gift. And so it's a slightly different business problem to solve. However, there's a lot of synergies in the infrastructure and the marketplace. And so there is some reasons to think that consumer gifting would be on our horizon.
Sure.
that makes sense? Actually, I have probably like one last question.
Sure.
You guys have grown to like multiple countries too. So I work
Mhm.
for a startup, and we are based out of multiple
Mhm.
countries too. And as we learn, like obviously the bigger players in the market gives a lot more benefits and economies of scale. As you continue to go through like smaller countries, it's challenging because your LTV to CAC might not be as good compared to like bigger countries and stuff.
Mhm.
how do you guys think about, I mean, right now I know you guys said multiple countries scaling
Mhm.
as well. Like, how do you guys think about growing in the global segment?
Yeah, we look at it in a couple of different ways. One, we look at how do we support our customers operationally from all these different countries. So we have these huge U.S. multinational conglomerates that have presences across the world. And so, from a customer support or from a marketplace and local logistics perspective, how do we send stuff to any country or provide gifting marketplaces in nearly every country? So that's kind of first, and that helps us push into these other regions that we weren't going towards from a go-to-market perspective first. From a go-to-market perspective, we look at how do we get in with certain partners and agencies that help us get into certain countries faster, or where is there large, populations of people that we think would be fitting to our ICP, and go after those regions too. But I think it's a combination of where our customers are pulling us, and then how do we work with agencies or other partners in these countries to get us in faster.
Got it. Awesome. One last thing. I mean, our podcast is primarily focused on like product managers or
Yep.
early product managers, etc. You have a very inspiring journey where you took a big problem, solved it in your company, took that problem, like came out, entrepreneurial mindset, like started your company. What is probably like one or two advice or tips that you would give for like early PMs or PMs who are trying to solve a problem or probably want to get into an entrepreneurial space?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're solving a problem, I think talk to customers. Go as soon as you can, if not yesterday. Talk to customers. Don't be scared to send a cold email. Don't be scared to go on LinkedIn and be like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about this thing I'm building." And if you get no, then go to the next, go to the next, go to the next. So don't take no as a response. Just keep finding it. So I think that was ingrained in my sales background. That I think some product managers might be skeptical of that, but just go talk to as many prospects or potential customers as you can. I think that's number one. And then go learn, go listen, go hear other people's stories. I think that's also critical. You can never stop learning or listening for inspiration.
Awesome. The last question that we typically end our podcast with, any book recommendations or podcasts that you would encourage people to like read and listen?
Yeah, let's see. I recently read the book Build by Tony Fadell. I
Mhm.
thought that was a really good book. He was early at creating like the iPod, iPad, some of the iPhone
Mhm.
products, and Nest. So that was a good book. Podcast I like Lenny's podcast. I think there's
Mhm.
some really interesting product knowledge from that one.
Awesome, Chris. Yeah. Again, thank you so much. I know we asked a lot of questions, but I love the. I felt like it was more of a rapid fire kind of discussion where we
Yeah,
had a lot of questions and you answered very fast. Again, thank you so much for taking time and spending time with us.
yeah. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks a lot, Chris.